In 811, at the Battle of Pliska, the Bulgars inflicted a crushing defeat on the imperial forces, annihilating the whole army, including Emperor Nikephoros I. To add insult to injury, the Bulgar Khan Krum encased Nikephoros' skull in silver and used it as a drinking cup. As a result, for the next 150 years, the beleaguered empire had to refrain from sending the forces northwards, allowing the First Bulgarian Empire to seize control over the Balkans. The reversal of the Byzantine fortunes came in the 10th century. The emperors of the Macedonian dynasty went on the offensive in the east, strengthened remaining positions in Sicily and southern Italy, and reconquered Crete and Cyprus. However, while they scored several victories over the Bulgars and even destroyed their capital of Preslav, the Macedonian rulers were unable to eliminate their main rival. It also contributed to the weakening of the Umayyad Caliphate, which the Abbasids had overthrown within the decade. The Muslim armies would not launch any major offensive for the next 3 decades, buying Byzantium precious time to reconsolidate and even take to offensive. Finally, in 863, the Byzantines scored a decisive victory in the Battle of Lalakean, eliminating the Arab threat and heralding the era of Byzantine ascendancy in the east. 2. Battle of Clydium, 1014. Byzantine Empire's triumph. In the early 9th century, the imperial armies confronted a double threat. In the east, the Arab raids continued to threaten Anatolia, while the Bulgars invaded the Byzantine Balkans in the west. To make matters worse, by the late 10th century, the Bulgar forces, led by Tsar Samuel, renewed hostilities, and after a great victory in 986, restored the powerful empire. While the Byzantine Emperor, Basil II, made his life aim to destroy the Bulgar state, his attention was drawn to the other more pressing issues. First, the internal revolt and then a war against the Fatimids on the eastern frontier. Finally, in 1000, Basil was ready to launch an offensive against Bulgaria. Instead of a pitched battle, the Byzantines besieged hostile forts, ravaging the countryside, while the numerically inferior Bulgarians raided Byzantine borderlands. Yet, slowly but methodically, the imperial armies recovered the lost territories and reached the enemy's territory. Realizing that he was fighting a losing war, Samuel decided to force the enemy into a decisive battle on a terrain of his own choosing, hoping that Basil would sue for peace. In 1014 a large Byzantine army, 20,000 strong, approached the mountain pass of Clydium on the Strymon River. At Clydium, Basil's first attempt to take the fortifications also failed, with the Byzantine army unable to pass through the valley. To avoid a lengthy and costly siege, the emperor accepted a plan by one of his generals to lead the small force through a mountainous country and attack the Bulgars from the rear. The plan worked to perfection. On July 29th, the Byzantines surprised the defenders, trapping them in the valley. The Bulgarians abandoned the fortifications to face this new threat, allowing the imperial army to break through the front line and destroy the wall. In the confusion and rout, thousands of Bulgarians lost their lives. Tsar Samuel fled the battlefield but died soon after of a heart attack. The victory at Clydium gave Basil II his infamous moniker Bulgarochtonos, the Bulgar Slayer. According to the Byzantine historians, after the battle, Basil took dreaded vengeance on the hapless prisoners. For every 100 prisoners, 99 were blinded, and one was left with a single eye to lead them back to their Tsar. Upon seeing his mutilated men, Samuel died on the spot. Although this makes for a juicy story, it is probably a later invention used by the imperial propaganda to highlight Basil's martial exploits over the weaknesses of his civilian successors. Yet, the victory at Clydium turned the tide of war, with the Byzantines completing the conquest of Bulgaria in the following 4 years and turning it into a province. The battle also affected the Serbs and Croats, who acknowledged the supremacy of the Byzantine Empire. For the first time since the 7th century, the Danube frontier was under imperial control, together with the entire Balkan peninsula. 3. Manzikert, 1071. The prelude to a disaster. By the time Basil II had died in 1025, the Byzantine Empire was once again a great power. In the east, the imperial armies reached Mesopotamia, while in the west, the recent addition of Bulgaria restored the imperial control over the Danube frontier and all of the Balkans. In Sicily, the Byzantine forces were one town away from the reconquest of the entire island. However, Basil II, who spent his whole life waging wars and consolidating the state, left no heir. Under a series of weak and military incompetent rulers, the empire was weakened. By the 1060s, Byzantium was still a force to reckon with, but the cracks started to appear in its fabric. The constant power games at the court hampered the imperial armies and exposed the eastern frontier. Around the same time, a new and dangerous enemy appeared at the crucial eastern frontier, the Seljuk Turks. Having taken the purple in 1068, Romanos IV Diogenes focused on rebuilding the neglected military. Romanos was a member of the Anatolian military aristocracy, well aware of the dangers presented by Seljuk Turks. Yet, the powerful Doukas family opposed the new emperor, considering Romanos a usurper. Romanos' predecessor was Doukas, and if he wanted to strengthen his legitimacy and eliminate opposition at the court, the emperor had to score a decisive victory against the Seljuks. In 1071, the opportunity appeared as the Seljuk Turks raided Armenia and Anatolia under their leader, Sultan Alp Arslan. Romanos assembled a large force, around 40 to 50,000 strong, and set out to meet the enemy. However, while the imperial army was impressive in size, only a half were regular troops. The rest was made of mercenaries and feudal levies belonging to frontier landowners of questionable loyalty. Romanos' inability to fully control these forces played a part in the incoming catastrophe. After a grueling march through Asia Minor, the army reached Theodosiopolis, modern-day Erzurum, the major center and frontier town in eastern Anatolia.